This is Veronica on the English channel. Second. Ok, listo.
crecimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement quédate en casa, que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
More than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to all member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the CTOUR, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Bueno, la CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo de lo público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement quédate en casa, que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, no podemos ser neutrales.
than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters,
Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of the Secretary General of the Organization of American States, it is an honor to welcome to this ceremony for the guide path for preventing the trafficking of illegal arms, ammunition, and explosives. We greet the Minister of the Ministry of Interior of the Dominican Republic, Ms. Fold. She represents the permanent representative of El Salvador to the OAS, Buendia Acevedo, and the third Vice Minister for the Ministry of Governance of Guatemala, Ms. Medallon, and the Undersecretary of Security and Human Rights in the Office of Security of Honduras, Hugo Suazo, Secretary General of the Public Ministry of Public Safety in Panama, and the Director of the Public Security of Costa Rica, Maria Eugenia Chavarria, and member of the Council of Arms and Ammunition of Belize, Manon Dennison. We also are pleased to have here the permanent representative of Mexico to the OAS, Ambassador Luz Elena Baños, who is the president of the conference and the pro temp Inter-American Convention Against Trafficking and Munitions, Explosives, and other SIFTA material. The head of Global Affairs for the European Union in the United States, Javier Sancho, Ambassador Javier Sancho, and the General Secretary and High Representative for Disarmament Issues of the United Nations, Izumi Nakamitsu, Mrs. Izumi Nakamitsu, and Secretary of Multidimensional Secretary of the OAS, Ivan Marquez, and the Director of Public Safety for the OAS, Stephen Greiner, and Director for the Peace, Disarmament, and Development in Latin America and the Caribbean, Mrs. Soledad Urruela, and the Director of Democratic Safety for the General Secretary of SICA, Mr. Jefe Boratalla. And we also greet other representatives of the member states, representatives of permanent observers, points of contacts for the participating countries, and special guests. Once again, we thank you for your participation in this adoption ceremony in spite of the climate conditions and the weather here in Washington, D.C. So we celebrate the political adoption of this initiative that was led by Central America and the Dominican Republic, which represents a highlight in international cooperation in combating the illegal trafficking of arms, explosives, and ammunition. So to begin the ceremony, I invite the Secretary General of Safety Security of the OAS, Ivan Marquez. Very good morning to all, everyone here present, and representatives of the member states of the OAS, the observer states, and the representatives of the different international institutions that are here with us today for this important event. A special greeting to Mrs. Izumi Nakamitsu, the Joint Secretary General at the United Nations for this affair, and Ambassador Javier Sancho, who is in charge of the European Union mission here in the United States on these issues, and Jefer Morataya, who is for democratic safety at SICA, that are accompanying us here for this ceremony. I would also like to especially greet the Central American government represented here by Mrs. Faride Raul from the Dominican Republic. I welcome everyone here that is here virtually in many parts of the world. On behalf of the Secretary General Luis Almagro, I greet you all and welcome you to this historical event regarding safety and security in Central America and the Dominican Republic. I am convinced that this roadmap to prevent trafficking and illegal proliferation of weapons, explosives, and ammunition will be a key instrument to diminish the violence, armed violence, and create more sure countries for our communities. As you know, unfortunately, Central America continues to have the highest rates of homicide in the world, almost 4 times the world average. Most of these homicides are caused by firearms. So this makes the region a place that is ripe for criminals to go and establish themselves. This leaves a trail of lack of safety, security, and it has a high economic and human cost. So everything that we've done by air, sea, and land, they overcome and they come in illegally to countries. Considering that all these firearms, ammunitions, and explosive are an obstacle for peace and development in Central America and the Dominican Republic, in 2022, these countries began a mandate or propelled a mandate accompanied by the OAS to develop this program to prevent this trafficking of illegal weapons and arms, and to establish a follow-up mechanism to do this cooperation between governments and donors. So based on these mandates and with the generous financing of the European Union, in the last 2 years, the Department of Public Safety of the OAS, along with SICA, the National Regional Center for Peace, Latin America and the Caribbean, made it easier to follow this general roadmap. So this is fruit, today is fruit of 2 years of work between the Central American countries and the Dominican Republic, after many consultations at a regional and sub-regional level that reflect undoubtedly the priority actions that have been agreed upon by Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Panama, and the Dominican Republic. To face this international, transnational phenomenon in the next 10 years, the goals set in this document will be what leads us to combat all of this in Central America, and all the key actors will be working on it. All government agencies, regional and interregional, and civil society will work together on this. The registry for weapons, border controls, follow-up of criminals, all of this are important parts that must work in a coordinated fashion and strengthened to have tangible effects and results in reducing the trafficking of weapons and armed violence. So I am honored to congratulate the Central American countries and the Dominican Republic for their political will and their vision in transforming to approve this roadmap today. So this operational tool at a sub-regional level will promote strategies that have been articulated and integrated to prevent the trafficking and the proliferation of these armed and other weapons and explosives, and diminish this and promoting more safe communities. And Central America and the Dominican Republic once again commit to this strategy to combat violence with firearms once they have ratified the Inter-American international laws on this and directives. They will also now have this operational tool to be able to implement these agreements at a national and regional level. That will be a priority so that countries can be more successful. Also, with the adoption of this roadmap, the creation of national plans will be then promoted so that you have an effective implementation that is monitored and sustained. So the Central American states and the Dominican Republic, I ask them to continue to support these from the highest levels of government, along with the implementation. The examples in the roadmap of the Caribbean and Central America show us that it is possible to reach these goals between the commitment from government and the international community in order to implement this program. I am also taking this opportunity to ask all donors and international actors to consider how they can support Central America, whether it be by technical assistance or by channeling financial resources, human and operational resources, to implement what is said in the roadmap. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a dynamic tool that will require leadership to comply with the purpose of executing more coordinated actions with government, regional and international organizations and other key actors. I am sure that the commitment of the Central American countries and the Dominican Republic are today adopting, not just showing the effort that they have made to reach this point, but to show us tangible results to reduce this illegal trafficking and the promotion of safer communities for all its inhabitants. The work just begins today. Let us not make this a document that is not taken action on or implemented. So the next steps to follow to continue this road. Thank you very much. We now invite the Joint Secretary General for Disarmament at the United Nations, Izumi Nakamitsu.
Allow me to speak in English. Distinguished ministers, distinguished colleagues, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and may I call dear friends. It is my great pleasure to join you this afternoon on this milestone occasion. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to, of course, the Organization of American States, OAS, and my colleagues at UNODA's Regional Center for Peace, Disarmament and Development in Latin America and the Caribbean, AMDIREC, for organizing this meeting. Since the establishment of the mandate for the Central American Roadmap, your unwavering collaboration has been indeed instrumental in supporting states to craft this vision for a safer Central American region and develop this vision into the concrete objectives and actions that make up the roadmap to be adopted today. I would also like to recognize our donor, the European Union, for their invaluable support in making this process possible. The grave dangers posed by small arms and light weapons, along with their ammunition, are well known. They are the primary cause of violent death worldwide. Central America has tragically experienced the complex challenges and consequences of these weapons firsthand, and their heavy toll on the region's sustainable development efforts. With some of the world's highest homicide rates largely fueled by gun-related violence, the region faces significant hurdles. Small arms and light weapons do not only aggravate interpersonal and gender-based violence, but also bolster organized crime, leading to tragic loss of life and profound economic and social repercussions. This situation obviously hampers society's capacities to reach their full potential, fulfill the goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, eradicate poverty, and fully realize human rights. Armed violence and instability triggered by those weapons jeopardize years of progress across the board. And of course, all these are one of the key drivers of illegal migration. Cognizant of this, Latin America and Caribbean states were amongst the first to recognize the linkages between disarmament and development. This is why UNODA's Regional Center, AMDIREC, includes development in its name. Indeed, there is a long-standing tradition of active engagement in the region in international discussions on disarmament and arms control. Your continent as a region is evident in the constructive stances you have taken on small arms and light weapons issues, clearly demonstrating your determination to tackle these issues head-on. Recent efforts, such as the negotiations leading to the adoption of the global framework for through-life conventional ammunition management, and the successful chairing of the UN Programme of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons Review Conference by Costa Rica, permanent representative to the United Nations last year in June, further highlight the region's leadership on these issues. These two political processes will contribute to the objectives of the roadmap by increasing technical capacities and cooperation in the region also through two dedicated standing fellowship programs for small arms control and ammunitions management. At the regional level, too, this region is at the forefront. Following the Western Balkans pioneering firearms roadmap, CARICOM countries and the Dominican Republic followed suit. With the adoption of the Caribbean firearms roadmap in 2020 and its successful implementation since. Belize and the Dominican Republic, who are part of both Caribbean and Central American roadmaps, will play an important role as bridge builders between the two initiatives. Now, in these challenging times for global peace and security, it is inspiring to witness regions and sub-regions uniting around a common cause. However, despite growing divisions, the significant strides at the global level must be noted as well. Thanks to the outstanding diplomacy and commitment on the part of the UN member states, including from this region, the Pact for the Future was adopted last year, capping a year-long process to align international cooperation with today's reality, enabling it to keep pace with emerging risks and opportunities. The Pact for the Future reaffirms the centrality of disarmament within the UN's peace and security agenda, emphasizing its ties to sustainable development, human rights, and humanitarian efforts. Through the Pact's adoption, states committed to building and sustaining peace and upholding their disarmament obligations and commitments. A key aspect of this commitment is enhancing efforts, both nationally and internationally, to combat and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons. Regional strategies are vital to this objective and must be robustly supported by international community. Roadmaps have proven to be effective, sustainable, and comprehensive mechanisms for enhancing arms control and ammunition management. The success and sustainability depends not only on sufficient resources, but also on effective cooperation and coordination at all levels. Ladies and gentlemen, the Central American Roadmap is the second such initiative in the region, building on the successful models of Western Balkans and Caribbean predecessors. It underscores the growing understanding of the interlinkages between disarmament, peace and security, and development. As the first roadmap to include violence prevention as one of its core pillars, addressing both demand and supply issues, this fostering collaboration with a broader range of stakeholders. The real work begins now, as has already mentioned by my good friend Ivan, to effectively implement the roadmap and transform its objectives and commitments into concrete actions and measurable outcomes. And I also hope the region will share its lessons learned across the world to other regions as well. The roadmap represents the shared priorities of the Central American countries. Going forward, at the national level, each state will have to identify priority actions and adopt a national action plan tailored to their specific needs and realities. The inclusion of a monitoring and evaluation mechanism from the outset was one of the most important lessons learned from the Central American Roadmap. It will now be incumbent upon the roadmap states and partners to ensure that data collection, monitoring and evaluation, and reporting are central components. This will promote in-depth analysis and evidence-based decision-making and actions to address diversions and misuse of small arms and light weapons and ammunition, enriching understanding of the linkages between these issues and development, and further integrating those dimensions into broader development frameworks. over time, this will facilitate identifying areas, the roadmap framework and tools that might need to be adjusted to strengthen its transformative potential. Finally, partnerships are essential to the roadmap's success, and the implementing partners across international and regional organizations and civil society that we hope will join this initiative and bring their specific expertise and skill sets to support states in achieving their objectives. I also extend a call to representatives from international community present today to strongly consider supporting this crucial initiative and help ensure its sustainability and success over the next decade. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, tackling the threats posed by illicit trade in firearms and ammunition requires solidarity and coordinated international efforts. It requires an integrated approach to small arms and light weapons control, armed violence prevention, and development. Today, as we adopt the roadmap, we embark on a journey towards a safer Central America, where everyone, particularly the most vulnerable, can flourish in a secure and peaceful environment. Good luck, and we will work with you very closely. Thank you very much for your attention.
Quisiéramos invitar ahora
We would like to invite now the head of the Democratic Security of the SICA, Herford Moradar.
Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ivan Marquez, Secretary of Multidimensional Security of the OAS. Mrs. Itsumi Nakamitsu, Secretary General and High Representative for matters of disarmament from the United Nations. Your Excellency Ambassador Javier Sancho, Head of Global Affairs from the European Union, Diplomatic Corps, duly accredited to the OAS. Your Excellencies, representative from the civil society, experts and specialists who have collaborated in the construction of the roadmap. Good afternoon to you all. From the General Secretariat of the SICA, from the SICA. Part of the relevance of sharing in this occasion, I believe that those who spoke before me, both Mr. Ivan Marquez and Mrs. Itsumi Nakamitsu, both of them mentioned, and I acknowledge part of the work that they have, of the work and the efforts that our member countries of the SICA, OLIREC and the OAS, we have been doing during a little bit over a year for the General Secretariat of the SICA. It is a historical responsibility to support processes of transformation and adaptation of the strategies for intervention in the struggle against organized crime, and in order to reach peace, development, prosperity, and democracy, as the Tegucigalpa Protocol sets forth, the strategic position of the countries members of the SICA imply that we are a region filled with resources and opportunity, but at the same time, it represents a challenge in terms of security, not only for these countries, but also for the whole continent. In light of our geographical space, by means of our ports, airports, border crossings as a logistical corridor for different illicit products by the organized crime. Within these illicit products, we find the trafficking in ammunition, explosive, and weapons, and this is the topic that gathers us here today, which has always been a priority for the uh, countries members of the SICA, which is reflected on the different regional strategies. One of the most relevant ones is the strategy for security of Latin America known as ESCA, which represents our regional policy in terms of security by means of its strategic guidelines and its four main components. So said document, which dates from the year 2012, we started working with this, well, the year in which we started to work with this program with the so-called Central American Plan for the Control of Firearms, which began in 2012, as I said before, with other of the programs from the SICA programs, also known as Program for Frontier Security, which also, on that occasion, its coordinator, which is here with us, Vice Minister Belner Ovalles, who knows very well this topic, and also as well as Mayra de Leon, people that have been working with us on this topic. We have been giving very firm steps in terms of security against the trafficking in firearms in the region. So this experience allowed us to identify and to take on a multidimensional approach
La prevención de los delitos.
for the prevention of the crimes committed with firearms, and also with by the criminal prosecution of the criminal groups that traffic in explosive firearms and weapons. So therefore, it is important to say that 70% of the firearms that have been used to commit crimes in the countries members of the SICA are in the storage of the legal authorities. So they were imported legally. So this reality has forced our states to take measures against the regional trafficking in firearms within the illegal markets. Another effort is the mapping of the trafficking of these firearms and their MOs. This has also allowed us to break with the paradigm of the origin of the trafficking in firearms, which in our region are used to commit 70%
Violentas.
of the homicides. In 2021, the heads of state of the SICA countries approved the agenda for threats, and they established the trafficking in firearms as a threat, which not only refers to the criminal action, but goes beyond to the transcoding elements of the use of firearms for the commission of other types of crimes. And also the mutation of crime with other organizations such as drug trafficking and money laundering.
Otro de los grandes esfuerzos y el
Another effort, which is the latest, is the regional plan against organized crime, also known as PRECO, that was approved at the highest level under the guidance of the Office of the Prosecutor from the 8 countries members of the SICA. We paid special attention to the trafficking in firearms and explosives in coordination with the investigative bodies, and also in collaboration with extra-regional bodies such as the Commission on Heads of the Police from Central America, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Colombia, and the network of prosecutors against organized crime. For this reason,
es para nosotros un deber
we see this as a duty to provide support to these countries of the SICA in initiatives such as this one, because we have to consider this roadmap as a tool that is very valuable and very useful in order to tackle the challenges, such as the proper understanding to the true nature, the inter-regional nature of the trafficking in firearms from a multi-level approach with common objectives and shared actions. We need to establish regional spaces between the responsible institutions for the nationalization and the control of firearms that countries import in order to strengthen the units for registration and control. We have to strengthen the levels of specialized investigation that will allow us to conduct criminal investigations by means of the traceability of the routes of illegal trafficking. We have to interconnect this research also in with other modes of organized crime that use arms, firearms, and explosives as means of payment and also to launder money. And to finish, I have to say that we fully endorse this initiative of the roadmap, the work and the contribution that all the countries members of the SICA have given by means of their working groups, which they achieved by using their capacities also from the General Secretary of the SICA in order to provide support to the countries that will benefit from this in order to be able to provide an interior approach for this topic, which is the proliferation of illicit weapons. We also wish this day to be productive, and as the speakers who spoke before me said, this roadmap that in its horizon has a validity of 10 years should count on the support, the cooperation of all countries, which is very important, but also the due articulation and the strategic alliances with different levels, with different bodies from our own countries and with our own institutions. Thank you so much.
Finalmente,
I would now invite the head of the mission of the European Union to the United States, Ambassador Javier Sanchez. Your Excellency, Minister, Vice Minister, Ambassadors, dear friends, it is a true honor to represent the European Union, and also from a personal perspective, it's always a big pleasure to come back to this house. That was my house for quite some time. I would like to thank the organizers for having organized this event to commemorate the adoption of the new roadmap for Central America and the Dominican Republic for the prevention of illicit trafficking and proliferation of weapons and ammunition. This event that gathers us today here is a very important event for our regional partners of the Dominican Republic, and on behalf of the European Union, I would like to congratulate you all for this. We are sure this is going to allow your own countries and the region as a whole will be a safer place, and will also improve security beyond your own frontiers. The European Union strongly believes in regional cooperation. Even the European Union is, by definition, an example of cooperation and integration that is very successful indeed. I would like to echo the remarks of Mrs. Nakamitsu when she referred to the relevance of the regional approach, which we fully share. Also, the European Union is an ally against the trafficking in firearms, which is an activity in which we have provided support for many years. That illicit trafficking does not know borders, and it has to be addressed internationally, in particular by means of a cooperation within the framework of conventions on control of weapons that we all are signatories to. No country of the world can successfully address this issue alone. The international architecture for the control of firearms that the states have built for quite some time is our common weapon against the illicit trafficking in weapons. In this regard, I would like to mention the program of action of the United Nations that we have all adhered to, which emphasizes on regional cooperation to combat the illicit trafficking in weapons. Regional cooperation is very important, as was mentioned also by Mr. Morata Jawad. This is also an explicit goal of the strategy of the European Union that we have referred to as protection of the weapons protection for the citizens, that was adopted by the Union in 2018, which counts on the full support of the member states of the European Union. For that reason, when the OAS brought this topic of illegal trafficking in weapons and its impact in the Americas, we've accepted the opportunity to cooperate with the organization on its efforts to address trafficking and the illegal use of weapons. So this support of more than 4 million euros has been successful for us, and I would like to ratify here our intention to continue cooperating towards the future. In 2015, the European Service for Foreign Service had conversations with the OAS, after which we decided to move on in terms of cooperation in a project against the illicit trafficking in weapons that the OAS would implement with our contribution. Your Excellencies, dear friends, before I finish my remarks, I would like to highlight the work conducted by the Center for Information for the Center of Weapons from Europe, and that Secretary Marquez referred to. They also have a roadmap against illicit trafficking in weapons, and I believe this is a very good example, and we have to use it as a source of inspiration. That roadmap that was developed for the Western Balkans, which also counts on the support of the European Union, has been a source of inspiration for many other efforts of in many other countries, many other parts of the world, including the Americas. For that reason, representatives from the CISAC, from the Western Balkans, were invited to Panama in 2023 in order to share their experiences and the practices of their roadmap during the process of consultation on the roadmap for Central America and the Dominican Republic. The signing of this roadmap today is a great step forward, and it's also a great moment in the struggle against illicit trafficking in weapons and that damage that it brings to societies and for those for the law-abiding people. On behalf of the European Union, I wish success in the implementation of this roadmap. The European Union is willing to continue contributing with you in this effort. Thank you so much for your attention.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, the authorities, for their opening remarks. We are especially thankful to the European Union for its contribution. Thanks to its generous contribution, we have been able to develop this roadmap and also this event for its adoption. Next, we will begin our ceremony of adoption, and in order to do so, I will invite the head of the public security, the Department of Public Security of the OAS, Stephen Reiner, who will give us some context on this regard.
Buenas tardes a todas y todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Secretary of Multidimensional Security of the Organization of the American States, it is a big honor to be here with you in this ceremony for the adoption of the roadmap for Central America and the Dominican Republic to prevent illicit trafficking and proliferation of arms and ammunition. The roadmap was promoted by the Central American governments, culminating in a mandate at the OAS Assembly for the OAS Department of Public Security in coordination with SICA and UN LYRIC to support the development of a roadmap. From that point on, and throughout the process of developing the roadmap, Central America reaffirmed its political will to transform the sub-region of Central America and the Dominican Republic into a safer, more integrated area with better capacities to respond to common challenges arising from the illicit trafficking and proliferation of firearms, ammunition, and explosives. The roadmap is inspired by the successful experiences of the Western Balkans and the Caribbean and consists of a government strategy tailored to the particularities of Central America with common objectives, actions and concrete goals monitored by shared indicators. Today, we are witnessing the participatory process of the independent roadmap facilitated by the OAS, UN LYRIC and SICA with the generous contribution of the European Union. The protagonists of this process were you, the authorities and technicians of the Central American governments and the Dominican Republic. Over the last 2 years, we have been working on developing this operational tool for sub-regional coordination. There have been countless virtual meetings, face-to-face visits, 2 regional face-to-face workshops, and various rounds of consultations and reviews to agree on a structure that addresses the priorities, particularities, and needs of Central America. The format, time frame, and content were defined entirely by the governments of the 7 participating countries: Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Panama, and the Dominican Republic. The roadmap adopted today reflects the country's objectives and priority actions for a period of 10 years to strengthen the regulatory frameworks, institutions, capacities, and processes to prevent, control, and combat the trafficking, manufacture, and illicit proliferation of firearms, ammunition, and explosives in Central America and the Dominican Republic. Those objectives and priority actions are structured around 4 thematic areas that address the main challenges facing the region in managing the illicit flows of arms and ammunition. Area number 1, regulatory strengthening and interinstitutional coordination. Area 2, prevention of violence with firearms and the misuse of firearms. Area 3, management of the life cycle of arms, ammunition, and explosives. And the last priority for investigation and criminal prosecution of the trafficking, manufacture, possession, and illicit use of arms, ammunition, and explosives. The objectives and actions established in the roadmap will serve as a common thread to integrate strategies to combat arms trafficking in Central America.
Permitterà
It will allow areas such as arms registration and licensing, border controls, national stockpile management, tracing, criminal investigation, and the promotion of a culture of peace to function in a coordinated and strengthened manner to achieve tangible results in reducing arms trafficking and armed violence rates. Furthermore, the implementation of this sub-regional coordination tool will reinforce and support the fulfillment of the commitments made by the Central American states and the Dominican Republic in instruments and initiatives at the international level, such as the Arms Trade Treaty, at the regional level, such as the Inter-American Convention Against the Illicit Manufacturing of and Trafficking in Firearms, Ammunition, Explosive, and other related materials, the CIFTA, and at sub-regional levels, such as the Central American Security Strategy, the ESCA. Therefore, The roadmap aims to be an operational, dynamic, and participatory tool that guides coordinated actions among all key actors, including government agencies, international and regional organizations, the donor community, and the civil society. To this end, once adopted, the roadmap will have a monitoring mechanism to operationalize and implement the commitments made, highlighting specific actions at the national and regional level that are priorities for countries to have more success in their public policies. Once the roadmap is adopted, countries will have the opportunity to develop national action plans to promote effective, monitored, and sustainable implementation. With the adoption of this important instrument, we have a unique opportunity to promote more coordinated actions between government institutions, regional and international organizations, civil society, and the academia towards a safer Central America. For this reason, today's agenda was structured with the aim of offering a space for promoting dialogue between all the actors and mobilizing all our efforts with a view to initiating the implementation of the roadmap. I am convinced that the roadmap can be a key tool to support the countries of this sub-region in their valuable efforts to reduce the scourge of armed violence. However, it is important to highlight some points relevant to the success of the roadmap. Number one, the Central American governments have to take ownership and lead the implementation of the roadmap in order to make the most of this opportunity. The backing and political support of the highest authorities is essential if the technical staff of the institutions are able to develop the document and obtain its political approval. Number two, it is also necessary to join the efforts of all actors in the international community to support the Central American countries and the Dominican Republic in the implementation of the roadmap. I invite you to consider from your different roles how we can support Central America and the Dominican Republic, whether through technical assistance or through the channeling of financial, operational, and human resources to implement the actions defined in the roadmap. Finally, I would like to thank the European Union for its contribution to the development of this initiative by means of the financing of the Program of Assistance for the Control of Arms and Ammunition, PACAM. The European Union has been a key player in supporting the efforts of the OAS and the governments of the region to combat and prevent the trafficking of arms and ammunition, promoting violence-free environments in our communities. I would also like to highlight the collaboration of UN LYRIC and SICA in promoting this initiative, which is irrefutable proof of how international and regional organizations complement each other and must work hand in hand to render possible the commitments that their member states assume at the global, regional, and sub-regional levels. Last but not least, I would like to recognize and thank the national points of contact who have represented their countries in an exceptional manner and have dedicated their time and effort to generate inputs, reflections, and synergies regarding the prevention of the illicit proliferation and trafficking of arms and ammunition. From the Secretariat for Multidimensional Security, we reiterate our commitment to leading these efforts and to working in coordination with all the relevant actors. Thank you so much.
Gracias, director.
Thanks, Director Greiner. Your Excellencies, we're now coming to the most relevant section of this event. Before we sign the adoption of the roadmap, we will invite the authorities from the participating nations to deliver their statements. In order to do that, we suggest you respect the 5-minute limit. Your Excellency, Ministry of Interior and Police from the Dominican Republic, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I would promote and congratulate for this initiative that has launched from the OAS, and to thank Izumi Nakamitsu from the United Nations, and Jefe Morataya, Director of Security at SICA, Javier Sancho, Leader of World Affairs with the European and representative of the European Union in the U.S., to the U.S., and everybody here present, and the Vice Minister of Guatemala representing all of those, Mayra Leon. To be brief, to contextualize a bit our presence here, this ratifies the commitment of the Dominican Republic to this roadmap in designing an effective plan of action that will allow us to constantly review, knowing that from the point of view of numbers, and this varies in armed trafficking and weapons trafficking. So the Dominican Republic has a very sensitive situation because we share territory with Haiti, where from the point of view of a social and political point of view, there is an inconsistency because they are dominated by gangs and bands, and they do traffic illegal arms across the border that come into the Dominican Republic. So we have foreseen from the Dominican Republic a better border security, and categorically to express the will of our president, that we have a number of people from the police and the Defense Department to then manage this arms trafficking into and from the Dominican Republic. So we detected that members of the National Police were sending contraband arms to Haiti. So this created an alert at a national level and international level that made it possible for us and for the authorities to take control of this. And we put 10 members before justice, 10 of the policemen before the courts. So there are certain procedures, even though we have a pretty well managed rate of homicides, but the majority of them, and in social conflicts, there is always, or at least in most of them, a firearm involved, and they are usually illegal. So to date, the police has told us that we have 243,700 weapons registered. And compared to 2020, where we have 236,800 something, there has been an increase, but not disproportionate, which allows us to think of what we have right now. And part of the challenge, what do we do for these weapons, with these weapons that are in the streets, that come into this registry, and that they can be accounted for and they can be controlled, where the law says that the Dominican Republic and the ministry may know who owns these weapons and who makes use of them. So with this roadmap, we have taken this weapons registry as an important factor, and as is one of our priorities. We continue to reinforce and strengthen norms and rules and legal frameworks. What are we doing right now? We are beginning to create a set of rules for these weapons so that we can execute management in a better manner. In the Dominican Republic, those areas that control weapons that are being used for the defense of the nation, and to limit each ministry's function so that there is no overlapping, so that we're more organized and more efficient as the norms dictate. So the public ministry and the defense ministry are working to avoid this contraband, this illegal trafficking that arrives by air, sometimes not just through land crossing borders and maritime. And the human factor that in the institutions that participates in this illegal action makes us fallible. So we're trying to work on that as well. We're creating deposits for civilian arms or weapons that the people have and register them. We cannot forget that if there is no interinstitutional collaboration between the countries, it's the only way that we can overcome this. And lack of information between governments, this has to be observed. That is why, for us, at an international level, this is very important for us to consolidate all this, including statistics that each one of the agencies that work on this matter have. So for this reason, in control and supervision that are still limited capacities right now, what do we have to prioritize? This standardization at a regional level is extremely important for us to contribute in the persecution and vigilance, efficient vigilance of these trafficking, illegal trafficking of weapons and others. So the elaboration of this action plan immediately is a priority for our country, and these initiatives that we have already embarked upon are geared to be able to collaborate directly and unifiedly with this international initiative. Our commitment is a regional commitment to maintain the safety of our citizens and avoid and intercept the contraband of these weapons, munitions, and explosive. And we should do this in a transversal way. Everything that has to do with violence, gender violence, and all complaints that we receive within our country. So I think today is a historical date for the Dominican Republic to belong or be part of this great commitment that will undoubtedly bring the benefits that we hope for our citizens. Thank you very much.
Continuamos con el miembro del
We continue with the member of Council of Belize, Manuel. What is that? Yes, the gentleman from Belize. Please, go ahead.
Protocol having already been established, I'd like to recognize the presence of Mr. Ivan Marquez, Secretary of Multidimensional Secretary of the OAS, Ms. Izume Nakamitsu, Under-Secretary General and High Representative for the Disarmament Affairs of the United Nations, Mr. Hefer Marataya Arriaga, Director of Democratic Secretary of the General Secretariat of SICA, Ambassador Javier Sancho, Head of Global Issues and Innovation Delegation of the European Union to the United States, other ambassadors, representatives of the varying countries and organizations, specialists, invited guests, and or stakeholders in general. Again, good afternoon. As I speak to you today, I do so as a representative of the recently constituted Firearm and Ammunition Control Board of Belize. By extension, I do so on behalf of the chair of this board, Mrs.
Sharol Kar Saldiva, who also serves as the CEO of the ministry with responsibility for this board. I also speak on behalf of the Minister of Home Affairs, the Ministry of Home Affairs and New World Industries, the Honorable Mr. Karim Musa. I am proud to say that as countries, we are gathered here today with one goal in mind. We stand together on the precipice of attaining greatness with the adoption of the Central American and Dominican Republic roadmap to prevent illicit proliferation and trafficking of firearms and ammunition. It is our spirit of cooperation and perseverance that has seen us make progress in such a timely manner. We have surely come a long way from that meeting in Panama in 2023. However, I am mindful that there is still a long way to go. Belize, in embracing its idiosyncrasies, can truly attest to the fact that the proliferation of illicit trafficking firearms and ammunition constitute one of the main obstacles to peace, security, and development. Seeing firsthand how a lack of structured plan and can have such a negative impact on crime and violence in a society emphasizes the importance and the need for this roadmap. This roadmap, which is similar to the Caribbean roadmap, definitely benefits the country of Belize as it provides a structured pathway to addressing the concerns and to achieving a unified goal. Of course, the goals, as noted by this roadmap, the reinforcement, to reinforce regulatory frameworks and interagency coordination, prevention of violence with firearms and firearms misuse, life cycle management of firearms, ammunition, and explosives, investigation and criminal prosecution of trafficking, manufacture, possession, and illicit use of firearms, ammunition, and explosives. These are in line with the newly acquired mandate of the Firearm and Ammunition Control Board, which serves to provide another level of transparency in addressing issues relating to firearm and firearm-related offenses. This also supplements the old mandate of the requisite law enforcement agencies of Belize, such as the Belize Police Department, the Customs and Excise Department, and the Coast Guard, amongst others. With the outpouring of support from agencies such as OAS, PACAM, UNLIREC, SICA, CARICOM Impacts, MAGS, and the European Union, amongst others, our journey towards creating the proper infrastructure needed to achieve these goals have become easier. We are grateful. We hope for continued assistance and guidance from the noted donors, stakeholders, and for the political willpower as we chart our way forward, understanding that cooperation is key in this venture. Thank you.
Quisiéramos darle
We would now like to let the Director General of Armament from Costa Rica have a word. Good afternoon. I wish you all a good, and Mr. Sancho, Ambassador of World Affairs of the United Union. Also, I'd like to greet Mrs. Izumi Nakamitsu, General Secretary and High Representative of Disarmament at the United Nations, Mr. Stephen Greiner, Director of Public Safety at the OAS, and Mr. Ivan Marquez, Secretary of Multidimensional Safety or Security, and Soledad Uruela from the United Nations and from UNILIREC, and distinguished people here present that are with us today and all the representatives from the ministries and public safety. All of these are friendly nations from the region. Good afternoon to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, Costa Rica, the government, and especially the Minister of Security and Safety and Security, Mr. Zamora, who has allowed me to represent him here, has given me that honor, wants to express his extreme pleasure to participate on such an important date at an international and national level. For us, for this activity, we have full hope that it will create a commitment to create this network of countries and implement the roadmap of Central America and the Dominican Republic. So this valuable initiative that was promoted by the Public Safety Department of the OAS, as well as the interregional one of the United Nations for Disarmament, Development, and other organizations such as the European Union, agrees with the interest of our country to face this armed violence problem that we face, and homicides and contract homicides amongst criminal bands. Our country, which by tradition has been peaceful and has had peace at the center of its mandate, today we are facing this fight against armed violence. This is a lamentable situation, and it has consequences that had never been seen by our citizens, and we need the support of all present and everybody that can help and support us to face this. The main gist of this project at a regional and sub-regional level to prevent the illegal trafficking of firearms, ammunition, and explosives not only strengthens us internally, but it does at a regional level. So this will also lead us to strengthen, to fight the illegal flow of all these weapons. As an example of the commitment of Costa Rica in 2024, by publishing our national security plan, we took on the responsibility of improving safety and security according to the standards of our rule of law, and to strengthen what will promote human development. I would like to point out that as a Ministry of Security and Safety and Security in Costa Rica, we find axes within this roadmap that are also in our own personal norms and rules. Security and safety for human beings, the coordination of data, and what we do to control and manage weapons, and also to promote more transparency and understanding of the problem and political decisions, as well as the private sector with the private sector. So because of all this, I reiterate our gratefulness to be part of this effort, and I trust that we will receive the support needed and that will be developed from today on. This support will provide the best fruit and results at a national and regional level. And you can see from the ministry and the Minister Zamora, you have one more ally in the illegal trafficking of arms and ammunition. Thank you very much. We now give the floor to the representative from El Salvador to the OAS. Thank you very much. I greet all the high authorities from Central America, Dominican Republic, and the permanent representatives to the OAS here present, and the High Representative for Disarmament of the United Nations and the European Union, and the Director of Democratic Security of SICA, and the representatives of multinational of this organization. Special guests, ladies and gentlemen, our presence here today is because of a collective understanding that it is impossible to maintain peace in our region and countries without these efforts. The efforts that we're making to guarantee the safety of our populations, undoubtedly the management of this illegal trafficking of firearms, munition, and explosives is something that we must strengthen at a national and international level. So the adoption of this roadmap today is a tangible result of what we have done in Central America in 2022, the request we made to the General Assembly of the OAS to take care of the impact or deal with the impact that these firearms were having in our countries. So this will also be a tool to counteract this evil apart from what each country is doing. So the adoption of this today would not be possible without the support of the states, joined to the technical and financial support of many actors that are here represented today, and we thank all of them. El Salvador is aware that we cannot take on this illegal trafficking of firearms and explosive on our own. But we know that we have participated from the beginning in this effort in a joint manner, contributing what we know, and a coordinated effort and response to this is what we're doing. And it is necessary to take this on from different points: information, interinstitutional coordination, the management of the life cycle of ammunition and firearms, explosives, etc. To take care of all this in an integrated fashion will continue to reduce armed violence, but it also will improve governance and governments and all institutions. Our President Bukele said that this was a priority from the first day of his mandate, and led since then an historic effort for security, which makes us the most safe country in the hemisphere today. In my country, for decades, illegal weapons have created or transformed events in death and other violent conclusions. So to face these challenges, our civil national police, along with the army, have taken more than 400,000 weapons from different criminal groups in the last few years. So this has been, under President Bukele, more than 810 homicides that have come down to 1.9 for every 100,000 citizens. So we must persecute the trafficking, possession of these weapons and ammunition, as well as strengthening the international and regional cooperation. The applying public policies and rebuilding of the social groups will guarantee the peace and respect for human rights within our societies. So the region will strengthen their economies and their social groups, and doing away or at least breaking some of the cycles of poverty. So we must unify our efforts, and we must strengthen our cooperation amongst governments and judicial systems within the region So I will end by thanking SICA of Latin America and UNDIREC and the OAS, and especially the valuable support, financial support of the European Union. And this will all strengthen that instrument that we're adopting today and for it to be successful. Thank you very much.
Continuamos ahora.
And we continue with the third Vice Ministry of the Ministry of Governance of Guatemala. And I make an echo to this, and I extend my greetings to everybody here. We are delighted by the adoption of this roadmap. It has been hard work where our realities have been taken into account within our societies. We know very well the effects that firearms, ammunition, and explosives have in our lives, our safety, health, etc. We know that even though there are some diminution of the homicide rates, firearms are still the main vector of violence. We're not traffickers, but we suffer the consequence of trafficking of these firearms and what they represent for our countries in the region, what the new technologies, the design of polymeric and modular weapons, as well as those that are done in 3D printers. So all of this is being acknowledged constitutional. Our new plan provides guarantees and rights of the people that decide to not arm themselves, and we can establish controls and institutional work or cooperation. So from the framework of democratic nations, the Central American region saw as a threat this trafficking of firearms. It is because of this that one of the commitments was to take this on from the legal standpoint or framework. So since then, we have created or had great transformations at a legislative level. There have been declarations, agreements, and treaties that we have been a party to, and that have helped enormously to control the registry of these firearms. It is not by happenstance that it is within the OAS framework that today we adopt this roadmap, because one of the main instruments is the Inter-American Convention of producing and trafficking of firearms, explosives, weapons, so known as SICA. So this used to take on ammunition and other components. We cannot control firearms if we do not include ammunition and other related materials for them. So this is why Guatemala reformed its legislation, and then including, and CIFTA at that time helped us a great deal to make this reform, and it was why we were able to, from that standpoint, something that perhaps didn't seem so important to other people, but for us, which were handmade or artisanal weapons. So we now have a clear line, and by the plan of actions that are very robust and broadly reaching, we will be able to then implement these new rules and legislation. In Guatemala, we have the National Commission to Prevent Armed Violence, and this will be in charge, this group will be in charge of taking care of the national plan and taking into account the life cycle of weapons, ammunition, explosives, to have different places to deposit them and strengthen our capacities, amongst other things. I'd like to emphasize prevention specifically, because we want to prevent armed violence as well as improper use of weapons, then we have to review and try and register all weapons, those that are duly registered as well as those that are not now. And our aim is to get them all registered. And this requires institutional articulation, which is one of the main strategies of our mandate. We prioritize everything in working in spaces so vulnerable, such as homes and schools and other areas where where society and community live and interact. So UNLIREC, in this process, we congratulate them and thank them, as well as SICA, and the support and cooperation from the European Union. We also are grateful to those countries, our friendly countries, that were working with us, and we reiterate how important it is to adopt this roadmap to prevent armed violence and the guaranteeing of rights for our population. Thank you very much.
Subsecretario de Seguridad.
Undersecretary of Security and Prevention and Human Rights in Honduras, you have the floor. Good day, Mr. Ivan Marquez, Secretary of Mrs. Izumi Nakamitsu from the United Nations on Disarmament, and Mr. Jefer Morataya, Director of Democratic of the SICA, of the Secretariat, General Secretary of SICA, and the leader of global issues for the European Union of the United States, and Stephen Greiner from the OAS, representatives from Central America, the Dominican Republic, and Belize. Please, I wish you all a good day and afternoon. And the representative from Honduras. It is for us an honor to speak to you at this high-level session for the formal adoption of the Central American and Dominican Republic roadmap to prevent trafficking and proliferation, illegal proliferation of firearms, ammunition, and explosives. This document is a highlight in our collective commitment towards peace and development and safety of our region. Being aware of the challenges that this trafficking does pose, the states of Central America and the Dominican Republic and Belize have taken on the responsibility in a historical manner to advance towards sustainable solutions that will guarantee the safety and development of our societies. This roadmap is the result of a participative consultation process, UNLIRIC and SICA, which has allowed them to define clear strategies and actions to face this problem that is affecting all the countries of the Isthmus. In the case of Honduras, the state has implemented actions to combat this evil. Since 2022 and 2024, we have taken out of circulation 16,766 firearms of different calibers, weapons, rifles, assault rifles, different revolvers, and also homemade weapons such as chimbas, as we call them in our country, and different pistols of different calibers and explosives. We've also been able to take out of circulation more than 50 different ammunition. And 76% of these firearms were taken from their owners. We should also mention that 85% of homicides by firearms are from illegal weapons, the ones that come through non-authorized points by bands, maras, and gangs at a transnational level. 24% were tied to some crime. So this tells us that Honduras, against all this type of threats, is working to create safer communities, and we reaffirm our commitment to combat proliferation and illegal trafficking of firearms by having constant operations within our country. We also say that the trafficking of ammunition and explosives, because this puts at risk peace, stability, and the development of our society, so we will combat that as well. So this roadmap that we're adopting today becomes a strategy essential to guide our efforts and lead us to more effective action. Our vision as a country that is a party to this conviction that we must create solid legal frameworks and to cooperate at an international level and regional level, because it is only so that we will be able to face this illegal trafficking and that destabilizes our region. We must also give priority to education and citizen awareness by promoting programs that will reduce the use of weapons and promote a culture of peace. And to adequately deposit and store these weapons. This is essential so that these weapons are not deviated and used in an illegal manner. And thus we will strengthen also our investigation capacities and apply strict sanctions to those who create, manufacture, and use illegal weapons in our country. The implementation of this initiative then demands tight collaboration among states, international partners that are donors, but only this way shall we reach our goals. To close this vicious cycle of impunity is something that we have also proposed ourselves. And I thank, on the name of Honduras, the backing of the OAS, UNILEC, SICA, and every party that has contributed to creating this roadmap. Honduras reaffirms its commitment, and we will continue to advance for peace. Thank you very much.
Now, to finish this segment, we would like to request the Secretary General of the Ministry of Public Security from Panama to take the floor. Well, Your Excellencies, distinguished representatives, ambassadors, and members from the Diplomatic Corps of the Permanent Missions, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to address you at this important meeting on behalf of the Ministry of Public Security to prevent the illicit trafficking in weapons. It is a key moment in order to combat, as I said, the illicit trafficking in weapons. I would like to thank Mr. Ivan Marquez, the Secretary of the Multidimensional Security, Itsumi Nakamitsu, Secretary General and High Representative for Disarmament Matters of the United Nations, Mr. Morataya Arriaga, Director of Democratic Security from the SICA, and also Ruth Bahada, Minister and Joint Head of the Mission of the European Union to the United States for their invaluable commitment and leadership. It is a true honor to be here with you on behalf of the Minister of Public Security, Frank Alexis Abrago, representing the national government of the Republic of Panama. We thank the Organization of American States and the Regional Center for Peace, Disarmament and Development in Latin America and the Caribbean for convening us in this space for cooperation and joint work. Today, we are brought together by a common challenge: the trafficking and illicit proliferation of firearms, ammunition, and explosives. This threat not only undermines the security of our nations but also has a direct impact on the well being of our societies, promoting violence and undermining sustainable development. As states, we have the responsibility to strengthen our mechanism for detection, investigation, and prosecution in order to confront the criminal organizations that profit from this scourge.
Ha asumido un compromiso firme en esta lucha.
Panama has made a firm commitment to this fight. We have strengthened our strategies for the control and destruction
aplicando los más altos estándares
of confiscated weapons, applying the highest international standards. We're also continuing to make progress in the modernization of our weapons registration and traceability systems, with the aim of preventing their diversion into illicit activities. The adoption of this Central American roadmap represents a key step in the consolidation of more comprehensive and coordinated security policies. It will allow us to optimize international cooperation, strengthen the exchange of information, and establish joint strategies to dismantle transnational criminal networks. I reiterate the Panamanian government's commitment to regional security. We will continue to participate actively in initiatives that strengthen the prevention of violence and organized crime, promoting solutions based on justice, peace, and respect for human rights. Only with unity, shared responsibility, and decisive action will we be able to build safer and more resilient societies. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos profundamente las intervenciones.
We thank you for your contributions, which reaffirm the commitment of the countries toward security in the region. This process not only represents a very important step to tackle the proliferation of illicit trafficking in weapons and explosives, but also a token of cooperation and political will to build a safer future for Latin America and for Central America and the Dominican Republic. Now we are going to proceed. We're going to move on to the most relevant moment of this meeting. We're going to sign the roadmap, which marks the beginning of its implementation. We are going to invite the authorities of the participating nations to come to the table to sign the agreement. I am going to name the names of the countries so that they can come to the table. We are going to begin by Belize.
Thank you. Invito ahora.
I will now invite Costa Rica. El Salvador.
Seguimos con Guatemala. Invitamos ahora a Honduras. Continuamos con Panamá. Invitamos ahora a República Dominicana. Ahora quisiera invitar a los...
I will now like to invite the bodies that will organize or accompany us. We'll invite the Secretary of Multidimensional Security, Ivan Marquez, representing the Organization of American States, and also General Secretary is Mrs. Izumi Nagamitsu, and the head of the Department of Democratic Security of the Inter-American System, SICA.
A continuación queremos invitar...
Now we would like to invite the high authorities to come by the table so that we can take the official picture of this meeting.
También las altas autoridades de los organismos.
And also the high authorities from the witness authorities so they can appear in the picture. Thank you.
Disculpen, invito ahora a los...
I will now invite the representatives from the permanent missions of the respective countries to join the picture. I will request the authorities to please remain in the place where they are. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. I would now like to call upon the authorities to come back to the main table.
Solicito a las autoridades.
I kindly request the authorities to come back to the main table, please.
Amablemente también
I would kindly suggest a round of applause to celebrate the signing of the roadmap. Well, thank you for your participation in this event. The adoption of the roadmap is the first step of many towards the transformation of the strategies for the prevention of violence with firearms in Central America and in the Dominican Republic. Its success will depend upon the commitment and political will from the Central American government and from the support of the international community. We reiterate our goal so that all bodies in the region will cooperate and to endorse Dominican Republic and Central America in this endeavor. Before we finish, I would like to invite all the participants to take one more picture in the stairs of the building, and then we will move on to the Aztec patio in the first floor for a welcoming cocktail. Thank you so much and have a good afternoon.